Welcome to QueerTWENTY, our cohort of 2022. QueerTWENTY is our annual celebration of exceptional queer Indians who've made a mark in the fields of business, technology, media, entertainment, etc. Today it's my privilege to be joined by Shivangi Agrawal, a queer and disabled activist based in Delhi, India. They're currently working in the diversity, equity, and inclusion team at Thoughtworks and have over 6 years of experience working as an independent consultant, researcher, writer, advisor, and facilitator, with an emphasis on advocacy for disability, sexuality, gender, policy, arts, education, and accessibility. Thank you so much for joining us today, Shivangi. So you live in the intersection of disability and queerness. What has been your journey with regard to acceptance of both these identities?
Thank you, Arunava, for welcoming me, and I'm really excited to be here. I think in terms of acceptance, when I think about acceptance, it's something that just I think the journey that I had for disability and for queerness has been very distinct and different. For disability, it took me a really long time. I was born with a disability. It took me, and I for a long time I didn't even think that I was disabled. I didn't have a lot of people around me who were disabled. I did have a few people, but we didn't. The word disability was not very much used when I was like very young. I think it was only in like maybe when I came to class 9th or 10th is when I started realizing that I'm very different, from my peers, and that I have a different experience, I have a different body, and so I think that's when kind of when I started unaccepting it, because when you start realizing it, that you're different. It's like when it starts being something different for you to kind of navigate. So it took me a lot of time to work on that acceptance. I think it was only when I came to college that I started accepting it as a part of my identity, something that made me who I am, instead of something that was it was told, like a lot of messaging that is there around disability is about how it it can be your karma, or it's your bad, it's something that bad you did in the past. So for a long time I used to think that it was something bad that I did, to deserve something, a different body, uh, you know and like being and socially also it was a very difficult time for me, and when I was in high school. So I think it was only in college when I started accepting it, because I started becoming more involved in advocacy spaces. I think in college we do find a lot of like student advocacy spaces and women's advocacy spaces and stuff like that, and that's where my journey of acceptance of my disability started. And then the queerness, it came very naturally. I don't think there was any acceptance that was needed. In fact, like I always knew that there was a queerness in me. When I was the first person that I kind of had a very deep friendship and connection with, when I was in like seventh grade and all, like it came from a different gender than an opposite sex. So I think it came very naturally when I started accepting that I did have a sexual body. I had a sexual personality, I had a sexualness to myself. When that sexual awakening happened, it came very naturally to accept my queerness in a very natural way. Yeah, I hope that was a coherent answer. Yeah.
No, it was very coherent. So just one follow-up question over there. You mentioned about a couple of mental blocks that you had, about through myths and unscientific statements, I'd say, and certain things that are propagated in a very normative society. How did you get over those mental blockades? Or what was your support system that helped you get over those?
The mental blockages related to disability, I think what helped me the most was like having some one specific friend who would like call me on my bullshit and say that what are you talking about, it's not karma, it's not this is just who you are, and it's not something that you deserve, or it's not something, so it was that friendship with that person. And then I think eventually when I started talking about it with other folks, and and people also talked about the differences that they had. Like I had a friend who was fat or overweight, and she would talk about her experiences of feeling different and being different, and yeah, I think just those like sharing those experiences with my friends and peers and community is something that really helped me dismantle those things. And then eventually when I started reading about it also, I was super into reading. I really liked to read fiction. I loved watching fictional teenage TV shows, movies and stuff like that. I think when I would even encounter a little bit of disability discourse on anything, it's something that would come to me. I think one of the main things that really helped me when was and it'll sound a bit silly, but like I used to read Princess Diaries when I was very young. So it's a very popular series of books.
Yes.
And in that the protagonist does talk a lot about mental illness, psychosocial disabilities, and being different, like just being different. So I would put myself there and think about how like I have some, it's not something that I deserve, or it's just something that makes me who I am. So I think those are things that helped me with my disability. As I said, with my queerness, like it just came very naturally, again, like being part of the community. When I attended Pride, the amount of acceptance that was there was just amazing. I think that's something that I missed in disability community, that there was not a lot of disability community in India's that I was part of, which was accepting of sexualities and things like that. So I think it was the queer community which really helped me, come in come into myself and like really understand that there is a lot of different kinds of people there. Yeah. So yeah.
And how have you navigated attraction?
Yeah. So attraction, like I think it took me a really long time to think of myself as attractive, to think of even to think of other people, that I could think of other people as attractive as well. So not just myself but others also. Like I used to feel like maybe I just don't have it in me to like maybe yeah. So I think it just I think with attractiveness it just took like a really it took like when I accepted my queerness, it was a very natural progression for me to kind of come into the understanding of attraction and yeah, like exploring sexuality in different ways, where a lot of media represents and shows how attraction is for people who come from different communities, for queer individuals and things like that. So I think yeah, attraction was something that I think it really helped me blossom myself into something that I never thought that I would have. And so it was something like a, yeah, I don't know, like in Bollywood movies they show this flower blooming, and so maybe that's how for me it was, like that's how I came into like attraction, that this is something as an important aspect of life, where looks and attractiveness do matter. And and also like thinking about like attractiveness in terms of like disability discourse as well, because we in disability justice we talk about how disabled bodies are ugly, and those are something, and accepting that as something which is shifting the thoughts and discourse in that way, to say that even that ugliness has that light in it, where so I think changing the whole narrative of attractiveness through disability justice is what I think helped me bloom into it.
And you have critically written about educational segregation of normal education from special education. So could you share with us how this segregation does more harm than it does good? I'm just following up on what you just said.
Yeah, sure. I think segregation is always a bad thing, right? Like I think in the US we hear about segregation of black children from white children in schools, and how the education is completely different. And so the same is with disability right now. Like even now we see that there are special educators. Even in like the quote unquote normal schools, there are special educators, there are special education classes that are separate for people who have disabilities, than for the non-disabled world. So it does, like like you said, it does more harm than good, because the structure of the education becomes much more different, where it doesn't go into as much depth as it does for the non-disabled classes. They have a lot more back and forth analysis, and opinions, like where students are allowed to share their thoughts and opinions and what they have learned. But in special education, when it's separated, you don't get revealed to that discourse of you can have an opinion, where you can think about and analyze these theories and things in your own way, which is very, very important. So I think that is where segregation does a lot of harm.
So given your lived experience coupled with your exceptional policy research and analysis skills, could you shed some light on what Indian legislation has achieved through the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016 and the rules that followed thereafter?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll talk about like the pros first. Like I think it's an amazing document. The Rights for Persons with Disability Act gives us a lot of language, and it gives us a lot of understanding of what how we can why this disability inclusion is important in different spaces and institutions, in physical spaces, in workplaces, in education, and how how it can look like in an ideal world. And especially the parts of the RPWD Act 2016 which we have gotten from the UNCRPD are really amazing, I think. But the things that the ways that we have added onto it with the with an extra of listing the disabilities, that is what has made it a big mess. So I think before 2016 there were like 5 or 6 or maybe 7, I don't know how many disabilities were added to the list, and now there are 26 or 27, and that is very problematic, I think. And that completely goes against the UNCRPD, because it and the implementation of the RPD Act is focused on that listing of disabilities. So for example, like I'm a person with disability. If I need any accommodations or anything, especially in workplaces or education spaces, I have to have a disability certificate. So the disability certificate, it's not just about having the disability certificate, but it's also about the percentage of disability on that disability certificate. So those are things that have really made it challenging for people with disabilities to ask for the things that are enshrined to us in that RPT Act. And it's, I mean, forget about the challenges that we face to even acquire that disability certificate, especially for people who have invisible disabilities, for people who are, for example, hard of hearing, for who have visual, who have partial vision impairment and things like that. They because I mean, I want to share that, like, when we go to the, because acquiring that disability certificate means going through the medical model of disability, where you have to get a professional doctor to kind of affirm that you do have a disability. And a lot of times they will deny people who are hard of hearing, or people who are partially sighted, saying that you're lying, or that this is not real, and things like that. So that makes, of course, that is one challenge. And then the other one is that a lot of people with invisible disabilities who have who are who have autism and things like that, even they are told that they are faking it, or they are not what accommodations that do these people need, why do they so I think that part of implementation. And then I think when we approach, like, when for example someone who is partially sighted is being discriminated against in an educational space, and they don't have a disability certificate, then even approaching the court and challenging that discrimination becomes hard. So I think that's what those are ways in which there are a lot of cons in the way that the RPT Act is implemented in India, and it still needs a lot of work. Yeah.
Quantifying disability is not something desirable from a legislative point of view. And you mentioned, right, they want you to quantify exactly how much percent, what your disability level is, and that's a big problem. And I am sure there's a lot of red tapeism involved when you're trying to get a certificate, and the process is cumbersome. How do you think this legislation the government can continue to execute this legislation and add value in a way so that the little negatives that exist are transformed, and it actually makes a huge, humongous difference to anybody with any form of disability?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think there are several levels in which it can be, changed and implemented. One of the things that a lot of people with disabilities talk about, and one is that a lot of in the political scene, people with disabilities in India are still not seen as a vote bank, and we make 15% of the world's population is disabled, and we are the biggest minority in biggest number of minority, I guess. And so I think that is one way to think about, like, how to approach that legislation, where you really change the understanding of disability from a medical model to a social model, where it's not just about the diagnosis, oh, this person has cerebral palsy, or this person has an amputation, or this person is blind, has retinal or whatever, like all of these diagnoses is what the focus is going towards because of this RPT Act. But moving away from that and looking at disability as a community, as a vote bank, as a exactly, yeah. So I think, like, as a social model, it makes a big difference, where you think of a disability as something which it's not the impairment of the body, but the structure of the way the world is, the way that institutions are, the way that laws are formed, which are the problem, and not the body or the diagnosis or the medical aspect which needs. Yeah, it's not the body that needs to be fixed. It's the infrastructure or the society or the myths and the stereotypes that need to be fixed. So I think that is one way I would suggest change in the legislation.
What steps can corporate India take to make workspaces physically and socially accessible for the disabled queer workforce?
Yeah, I think what corporates should really invest on is, and it's something that the narrative is already there, is to really invest on young people, young people with disabilities, young people from LGBTQ plus community, to upskill them, because a lot of people with disabilities, a lot of queer people drop out. They don't get into the professional the professional services. They don't get into the nitty gritties of what it like being an engineer is something that you won't find a lot of engineers who are disabled or queer, just because there is a huge dropout rate. Even you hear that there is not a lot of gender diversity in engineering colleges, and in our schooling time, like in North India, we have we choose our stream. In class 11 we choose commerce, science or humanities, and not a lot of women are choosing sciences often. I mean, now I think it is changing, where a lot of women are choosing sciences, but they are not maybe getting into engineer, like the higher education, where engineering spaces and business analysts, all of these financial spaces where you would find a lot of women or disabled or queer folks. So really corporates should really invest on those educational and upskilling of young people to get into these spaces. And I think one of the ways that Thoughtworks is doing it is through this interning with Pride program that we have. So providing an internship where people from LGBTQ plus community can come and learn how to be a developer, from like how to upskill yourself as a developer. Those are very valuable. And we are also thinking, like, multiple corporates, I think are having conversations on how we can take these conversations to schools. For example, like Thoughtworks China, that I recently learned that Thoughtworks China is investing early education for the STEM fields. They are really encouraging women to get into the STEM fields at an early stage. So those are things that I feel like will really bring a huge change in the workforce that is available for corporates. Yeah.
Suppose you wake up tomorrow and you're in a different world completely. What would that world look like? And it's a world that's created by your imagination. So what would that world look like?
So I recently watched this movie Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
I feel like there were so many in that movie that would be the dream, actually, like to have a very like femme and queer and black and very some people that you don't see being the heroes, be the heroes, like in that movie. I don't know if you've seen it, but like most of the heroes and even the villains, I would say, are femme, people who are LGBTQ plus or women, or and I think that's what would be my dream, is for more people with lived experience to have that kind of power to make decisions and power to lead communities. I think that's also a very powerful narrative in Black Panther, where the these people are leading their communities. They are not just doing it for themselves, but for their community.
With who's your queer role model?
My queer role model. One of the people, like I and it's not someone who is very well known, but on social media, I don't know, we queer Vikramaditya Sahai. That's someone that is kind of my, I would say, like my role model, my mother, someone who's an elder, who I look up to. Yeah.
What's the best thing about being queer?
Best thing about being queer, the fashion.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And who's your favorite queer character on screen?
On screen, there's so many. I think, like I said, in the Black Panther, Okoye is one queer person that I feel like the most recent one that comes to mind. Yeah.
Can you name one thing that scares you?
One thing that scares me, I think violence. I think fights and violence, those are things that really scare me. Even like violence, even in the form like self-violence. I think those are things that really scare me. Yeah.
One thing that inspires you?
Inspire. I mean, inspire is such a a word which, like, people with disabilities have like a very bad relationship with. Inspire, maybe I'll just say like something simple like food. Food inspires me. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you a word. Please share like your immediate reaction to it.
Okay.
Workplace equity.
Awesome. One word, right?
Yeah, anything. One word. You can use a couple of words if you feel.
Okay. Workplace equity. Yeah, I think if done right with people with lived experiences, then awesome.
Homophobia.
Transphobia is more what I think about. I think homophobia is there, but I think transphobia is where it stems from. So yeah.
Allyship.
I think that allyship is essential and absolutely very important, and constant work. I think allyship, I would say constant work is what I would say. 2 words. It's constant work. Yeah.
Ambition.
Boring. I don't know. I think like I'm bored of ambitions and things. Yeah.
Politics.
Politics, right?
Yeah, politics.
Fight, all constant fight. Yeah, I think that's the word that comes to mind.
All right, India.
India needs a lot of work. Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the interview. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was amazing talking to you.